So, welcome back to the second clip on Zappos, where I talk about how a successful, values and culture-driven organization actually took the fast lane into self-management and is still a highly successful organization. So, for this, I want to take you to the 10 values of Zappos. And I'll read some of them: deliver wow through service, embrace and drive change, create fun and a little weirdness, etc., etc. Now, for most people, when we read value statements about organizations, we get a little bit cynical. I have to admit, when in my country, in Belgium or in the Netherlands where I work, if I hear companies talking about being win-win, proactive and caring about the environment and all that beautiful stuff, I have my doubts, because they don't always do what they say. I even remember back in '97, I was interviewing the then CEO of Proximus, which was a mobile operator, and he said to us literally, here's the value statements of our company, which were written on a mousepad. And these values, he said, he had just created a few days ago together with a consultant. So again, how serious can we take those values? Now, this is very different for Zappos. Those 10 values are the lifeblood of Zappos. It is how people are recruited. It is how people grow in the organization. And it's also how people are let go out of the organization if they do not keep on developing those values. Now, in order to understand the importance of values at Zappos, we have to look to Tony Hsieh. Now, briefly the story of Tony. He graduated from Harvard and then started his own internet company called Link Exchange. This company was very successful, and at some point, Tony had to recruit a lot more people. And some of those people were very good in what they were doing, but they were competitive, not necessarily cooperating with each other. And Tony even says that at some point he disliked showing up at his own company. He hated going to work at Link Exchange. And then Microsoft came around and made a nice financial offer. He sold the company, he invested it in other organizations, but he realized, next time I do something, next time I work with people, I want to be with people that share same values as I have. Now, Zappos was one of the organizations that he invested money in. In those days, it was still in San Francisco. He invested money in it. He started to work at and for the company, and eventually loved it so much that he became its CEO. That was then a move to Las Vegas. And those 10 value statements had to be the heart and soul of Zappos. And they are still the heart and soul of Zappos. Now, I'm going to take you briefly to a typical HRM cycle. This is sort of the classical HRM structure that we follow: recruitment, selection, induction, training and development, performance management, etc. Now, for Zappos, the message is really that company values have to be integrated into human resources at all levels. And this starts with recruitment and selection. So for Zappos, the recruitment process is like courtship, is like dating. Zappos people take weeks to talk to potential candidates who they may meet in a coffee shop, who they may meet at a fundraiser or a barbecue. So you're getting to know the person, and you really want to check, does she, does he have the same values as we have at Zappos? Would there be a culture fit with this person? And if the answer is yes, then the person is invited into Zappos and they get 3 or 4 weeks of induction, which part of it is spent at the call center. Why the call center? Because the call center is the key, the heart also of Zappos. For some of you who don't know the company well enough, well, Zappos is actually an online fashion store. Started as a shoe store, now it's really an online fashion store. It doesn't do marketing, at least not in a classical way. It has a fantastic, friendly call center where people really help you to find the products that you need, even if those products are sold by competitors or still have to be made. And their marketing really happens from, word of mouth and customers, and then also some of the amazing ideas that they put out and that are picked up by the news. Zappos doesn't have temporary workers. So everybody actually has to do a phone shift in the busy season. And when I mean everybody, this could be someone who basically works in accounting. So their main job is not picking up the phone, but they will, in the busy season, also do that. So everybody does that. Now, then you read $3,000. And I hope that with this video it's still 3,000, maybe it moved up. But at the end of those 4 weeks of induction, there comes a moment, very official, where Tony Hsieh comes to the people and says, hope you had a wonderful time at our organization, and I'm sure many of you, would like to come and work for us. However, if some of you still have doubts, if some of you still think this is not the place where I would like to be, the next 10 years or maybe even, the rest of my life, well, then we have an interesting offer for you. Namely, you can get $3,000 today, get your plane ticket refunded, and go back to wherever you came from, and everything's fine. And so, again, we have to realize also, for non-Americans, this is a tremendous offer. Not many companies do this during their induction. And the beauty of this in terms of smart human resources management, it really takes those people that still hesitate to say, well, maybe this is not really 100% for me. Because what Zappos wants are people that choose for the organization for 100%. Now, some more interesting human resources management. Well, first of all, the people are fully empowered to serve customers. Now, what does that mean? That means that when you're picking up the phone and you're helping somebody, no one says, make sure you finish the phone in less than 2 minutes, or make sure you upsell. No, the idea is you are helping the customer. Could take an hour. It could mean going all over the internet looking for products. It could mean sending flowers to someone if you found out that they had a casualty in the family or something like this. Yeah. And because of that, Zappos is also seen as an organization that truly, truly cares about offering customers what they are looking for. What Zappos also does is they have a culture book. You can download it for free online. Basically quotes, pictures, remarks of the Zappos people. And there are the famous Zappos tours. Now, when I was at Zappos in downtown Las Vegas in May 2015, I noticed several people going on those tours. And it may sound maybe a bit strange to us Europeans, but there's actually people paying money to go on a guided visit through the Zappos headquarters. And what do you see then? Well, you see that the Human Resources Management Department is covered with all sorts of dolls and giraffes and balls and weird stuff. And when you enter it, people ring a bell or make a noise. And it looks a bit weird, even for me, an HR special who's seen quite many companies already. Looks a bit weird, but it shows also that Zappos is sharing its culture, making its values visible, and it's sharing this with the rest of the world. It really wants us to also go and work for organizations that are fun, creative, weird, and where you feel happy. Remember Tony's book, Delivering Happiness. And for this, Zappos has also created a sort of consulting unit, which they call Zappos Insights, and there you can find out more about the HRM policies. Now, you have to pay some money for this to go on a training, but so they're training people into the Zappos way of doing things. The AH. Now in Holland we then think about Albert Heijn, but that's not it. The AH here is a quarterly all-hands meeting. Now, I also had to look up on the internet, what do they mean by this? Well, basically, every quarter, for half a day, all Zappos personnel, all Zappos people are at a conference center, all about 2,000 of them, and Zappos then presents financial information, but also fun personal stuff about fundraisers and things happening at departments and doing weird things with bicycles and having guest speakers, like for example, Ricardo Semler, and I did a small gig on tango and leadership. So the idea is the company is building the culture with its people, sharing the culture, sharing what is going on there. And then another important point, integration in the community. Now, many of you watching have probably seen a video on the Google campus or on the Nike campus and about all those smart international people, hidden in their island, surrounded by a huge wall, being smart together in their small community. And this may be great, but Zappos took a different direction. They said, we're not going to isolate ourselves from other people, as if we're like a colony of lepers. No, we are actually integrating in the community, building the community, sharing the community. And this happened in a very practical way, because you may remember 2008 was big financial crisis, started with the housing crisis, mostly in the US. Then it came to Europe with the big financial crisis. And downtown Las Vegas was an extremely run-down area of Vegas at the time. Businesses were leaving. It was like a ghost town. Now, what did Tony Hsieh do? He said, well, let me invest in downtown Las Vegas. Let's have shops here. Let's have cafes here. Let's have grocery shops. Let's do things so that families can come to Las Vegas, and people can also choose to go and live in Las Vegas. Make it, like their city and not just a place, a casino to pass through. So nowadays, you will see in downtown Vegas, where is also the headquarters of Zappos, you see that several Zapponians live there, and also there are, tourists with families and, just families living there, and it's all part of that community, integrating and creating your community. Now, I'm sure some of you watching this video have clicked it out and said, I'm going to send my resume straight to Zappos, that's where I need to be. Currently, unfortunately, they're only in the US and only selling their goods to the US. But they are also owned by Amazon.com, so who knows, maybe at some point you will be able to get their products also over here in Europe. But how about managers, you may ask? Well, about a year ago, Zappos was still an organization that had managers, and people had the official title of manager. Nowadays, they may still have the official title for the outside world, but internally, there's no more managers. There are leaders, there are people who take lead, they call them links, but they're not allowed to sort of stick to this managerial position forever as a sort of given or as a sort of power thing. But about a year ago, this was still the possibility. And what did those managers used to do? Well, they had to invest a lot of time in team building. Of course, they had to do cultural assessments because you had to grow in the values of the company. It was very important. And also a very fair performance measurement system where a raise was based on passing skill tests, so not on just your manager saying you were cool or not cool. And hiring and firing had to happen with the human resources management support. Now, several of these principles are still in place without the idea of managers, but the question is, well, how are they doing it today? Well, how they're doing it today, that will be discussed in the third and final clip on Zappos.